Agnes is more like Karen, you know, very always afraid of what's going on, apprehensive and so forth. I think that because I was so honest and straightforward, that presented a threat.
The tour continued. Lake Tahoe, Toronto, Detroit. Richard on occasion would race while the crew would sightsee. Another diversion was the Carpenters' softball team. Karen, wearing a catcher's mask to protect her face, was the pitcher.
It started out as a little thing, and we had enough roadies, enough people in the band. They're all good players. We had a real top-notch softball, slow pitch softball. Karen was our pitcher.
Smack dab in the middle of this endless tour, in September of 1972, the Carpenters ended up in an improbable location, the White House.
They did a 20-minute show for William Brandt, which is the Chancellor of Germany, and it was very exciting. It was very exciting because it wasn't your usual college gig.
Indeed not. It was very dignified, though Richard did break up the room with an unintended faux pas.
Richard, you know, had the mic on, and he didn't realize that it was on. He said, "Who's abroad with Kissinger?" Oops.
The lady was actress Mamie Van Doren.
We think that tonight, having the Carpenters, one of America's finest young group in America, entertain us, is most appropriate. The Carpenters, ladies and gentlemen.
Willie Brandt and the rest of the invited guests seemed to have a good time, and the Carpenters gave a spirited performance. Listen to Karen's haunting vocals on For All We Know.
Look at the two of us, strangers in many ways. Let's take a lifetime to see. I knew you well. There are only times which will say our love may grow for all we know.
The tour continued. Chicago, St. Louis, Green Bay, Lexington, Kentucky, where the tour plane suffered a minor mishap.
A person that was sitting on the right said, isn't that propeller stopped? And it's like, no, and everybody's going, my ears, and we were so dead tired that, you know, it's like, we don't care. Now we're looking down and saying, what are those guys in the gray suits and all that foam, you know? It was for us. We lost an engine.
More serious, at least to Karen, was her weight.
When I was on the road, she was always on a diet. And she always tried, you know, to not gain weight and all that.
As the tour mercifully wound down, the Carpenters signed to play 2 last concerts in Acapulco. It was for IBM's corporate meeting. Richard was reluctant to go.
Finally, he did go. And we had this wonderful house in Las Brisas called La Silva. And we stayed there, Karen, Richard, and I, and Sherwin and his wife. And the house was just fabulous. It came with personnel, so we didn't have to do anything. We had a party.
The party was short-lived. Richard had invited Harold and Agnes to join them in Acapulco. He put them up in a luxury hotel. Agnes would have preferred to stay with Richard and Karen.
The first night we went out to dinner, Agnes, we were going up the steps of the house to go to get in the car, and Agnes had, you know, really been just bitching at Richard about that the strangers are staying in the house and that his parents were not at the house. How could this be? How could this be that they were not there and we were? And for some reason, I mean, Richard stays pretty calm most of the times. This is the time that I saw him blow. I can't tell you how livid he was with his mom about it.
Richard's anger, like a summer storm, soon disappeared. The rest of the vacation proceeded amicably. Notice this shot of Karen exercising in her bathing suit. She looked fit and trim, yet she confided to Maria that she still felt overweight. From Acapulco, everyone went back to California. In 1972, the Carpenters performed in an amazing 174 concerts. In 1973, there was to be 174 more. Plus, they recorded one of their best-loved tunes, Top of the World. Back in Downey, Karen and Richard settled back into the Newville Avenue house with their parents. Karen seemed normal, even happy, but bubbling just beneath the surface was a cauldron of pain and insecurity and
pressure. Just good old-fashioned, pressure. Just pressure of having to please. You know, even with her wealth and stardom and whatever, she still had to please family. She still had to please the record company. She still had to please the managers. She still had to please Richard. She still had to please whatever. All those things, all those things were just pressures and pressures and pressures that built up.
The pressures and obligations of her career left Karen feeling powerless, even in the studio. While she was singing, Richard was in charge. It was natural then for her to try and find something she could control, like her weight. Coming up next.
I'd be at the A&M a lot, and I'd see Karen. She'd come back from the road, and she would be real skinny, and she'd look, and her face was drawn, and I said, Karen, I said, what's been going on? She said, well, I just got off a tour. And I said, you need to rest. You need to stay home, get some rest.
The Carpenters spent much of the mid-'70s on the road, barnstorming from city to city. Between tours, they were expected to go back into the studio and record. In addition, they appeared on countless television variety shows and specials.
Good evening, and welcome to a show about the things we love, music and the people who make it.
Richard and I could think of no better way to spend an hour than to fill it with music.
Many hours in our lives have been spent that way, and this one tonight is special because it includes America's first lady of song, Miss Ella Fitzgerald.
And a man who's always welcome because he's one of the best friends a good song ever had, John Davidson.
So, after all the hours of music that have preceded this one in our lives, we're very happy to welcome you to one more hour of music, music, music.
That's perfect. The music at the end and everything. Jeff, that's a wrap.
But
See you tomorrow.
Well, good night.
An offhand remark before one such television appearance remembers Bob Garcia unintentionally reinforced Karen's insecurities.
I do remember a PR person telling her at one time before a special that she had to lose some weight because you look 30 pounds heavier on camera. And as weird as it sounds, I always thought that that remark was a catalyst for a great deal of what came down.
A lot of what came down was instigated by Karen herself.
I think the only pressure that was put upon Karen was herself. Just as she had idealized love, I think she had idealized the image a way a pop singer should look. Their music sounded perfect. She wanted their look to be perfect.
From 1974 on, achieving that perfect look obsessed Karen Carpenter. Richard's affair with Maria Galeazzi came to its inevitable end in 1973. Maria blamed Karen.
Karen just didn't like the relationship. If she was alive today, Richard would not be married. I can tell you that. I would bet anything.
Maria was not the last member of the Carpenter family that Richard would date. He later took up with Randy Bash, the daughter of Carpenter manager Sherwin Bash. Karen herself dated, if sparingly. She had a brief relationship with Alan Osmond of the Osmond brothers, but a serious relationship eluded her. There simply wasn't time.
First of all, you're traveling every day in an airplane, on and off, one night stand. You're in a different place every night. Your relationship with who? You have no relationship except with the people that you're traveling with. but basically they're all working for you.
Karen did, however, find time to make a lifelong friend, Olivia Newton-John.
Karen and Olivia became real friends, real soulmates.
One of the highlights of 1974 was a tour of Japan, recalls Richard's Japanese interpreter, Yuko Ogura.
Oh, it was more like Beatles. The fans are all at the airport, and there was this guard, and the people were, you know, pushing and shoving and trying to see Richard and Karen and screaming, everything.
But no matter how successful the tours were, the overall effect was wearing on Karen, recalls musician Chuck Findley.
I'd be at A&M a lot, and I'd see Karen. She'd come back from the road, and she would be real skinny, and she'd look, and her face was drawn, and I'd say, Karen, I said, you know, what's been going on? She said, well, I just got off a tour. And I said, you need to rest. You need to stay home, get some rest.